Late that night, still in my gown, still smiling for people who didn't deserve it, I slipped away from the ballroom and followed the sound of laughter down a quiet hotel hallway. My wedding was in full swing downstairs. The string quartet was playing our song. Guests were clinking glasses. Cameras were flashing. My parents were beaming like they'd finally exhaled after years of waiting to see me safe and settled. And I was walking toward the bridal suite with my veil still pinned to my hair, because I needed 5 minutes to breathe. I didn't get 5 minutes. The door to the lounge was slightly ajar, just enough to let warm air spill into the hallway, and with it, a woman's unsteady voice. "I wore a wedding dress today too," she whispered, like she was confessing a sin. "Doesn't that mean I married you, even a little?" I froze. My first thought had to be that it had to be some drunk guest, some joke, some chaotic mistake that would be embarrassing but harmless. Then I heard my husband's voice, low, rough, unmistakable. "Daniel Hayes. You think you're my bride?" he said, and there was a laugh in his throat that didn't belong in a marriage. "Don't flatter yourself." A breathy sound. A soft pleading laugh that turned into a sniffle. Tiffany, I realized, like my brain finally caught up to the obvious. Tiffany Miller, my bridesmaid. The bright-eyed intern everyone adored. The same girl who'd been posting behind the scenes, wedding content all week like this was her moment too. I didn't move. I didn't even blink because through that crack in the door, I saw them. Tiffany was perched in white tulle that wasn't hers, her hands clutching at Daniel's shoulders like she could anchor herself to him. He had her waist in his grip, holding her like she was something he'd already claimed. And she was crying, real tears, smeared mascara, trembling lips, while she looked at him like a prayer. "My dress ripped," she breathed. "So what are we now? Is this your wedding night?" She slid off him like she was about to storm away, like she wanted him to chase her. He did. Not with tenderness, not with love, but with control. In one swift motion, he caught her by the hair, turned her, and pressed her up against the floor-to-ceiling glass. Below us, the lawn was lit with fairy lights. People were walking past, laughing, carrying champagne. The wedding march drifted up from the speakers, perfectly timed like the world itself had become an accomplice. It was one-way glass, mirrored from the outside, a private stage for him. I watched Daniel's reflection in the window, and I watched the way he leaned in, like the risk made him feel alive. Tiffany's voice broke again. "Promise me, tonight is only ours. Don't touch anyone else." His answer was a harsh whisper, the kind that doesn't belong in a vow. "You don't get to make demands." And then her tone changed, soft, worshipful, desperate. "As long as I get to stand beside you," she murmured, "I'll do anything." Something inside my chest pulled tight, like a hand had reached in and squeezed my heart until it forgot how to beat. Everyone said Daniel loved me. Everyone said he'd been devoted since we were young. We grew up in the same circles, private schools, charity galas, the kind of world where reputations were inherited like last names. He confessed to me on graduation day like it was a romantic movie, like the universe had been holding its breath for us. And maybe once it had been real. But 3 months ago, his phone started lighting up with a name he said he couldn't stand, Tiffany. Always Tiffany. He'd complain that she was clumsy, that she made mistakes, that she asked too many questions. And yet he'd say it with a smile that didn't reach me. That was when I knew the man who once looked at me like I was everything was gone. I covered my mouth because the sound that wanted to come out of me was ugly. It wasn't a sob, it wasn't a scream. It was the sound of something breaking. I turned away before I could see any more. I walked down the hallway like a ghost in a white gown, like if I moved fast enough, I could outrun the truth. A few doors down, my assistant was waiting, because my family didn't do anything without plans layered under plans. Maya stood up the second she saw my face. Her eyes widened. "Miss Reed? Rachel? What happened? Are you okay?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just reached past her and opened the folder she was holding. Inside was a contract with a bland title and a sterile logo. Cloud Legacy Playback/Phoenix Identity Reset Program. 7 days. That was the timeline. A week until a person could disappear so completely that even their digital shadow would look like it never existed. The program had been built for high-profile clients who needed a second life, witnesses, victims, people whose names had become cages. It was expensive, it was secretive, it was brutal in how thorough it was. And my family had a stake in it. Maya's hands trembled as she tried to keep her voice steady. "You told me this was just a contingency. If we initiate it, you can't come back. You'll be legally dead. There will be no links, no accounts, no trail, not even your face in public databases." Behind me, from the suite I'd fled, there were muffled sounds, breath movement, the faint cadence of a woman crying and a man breathing like he owned the world. Maya flinched. "It's your wedding night," she whispered, horrified. "Who would?" I snapped the folder shut and pressed it into her arms, hard enough that she stumbled back a step. "This has nothing to do with them," I said, and my voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded flat, clean, final. Maya's eyes filled with panic. "Rachel, please. If you do this, you'll vanish. Your parents. They'll know I'm dead. They're the only ones who will." I took the pen from her shaking fingers. At the bottom of the page was a line for the participant's name. The original one was someone else, a paid volunteer, a controlled test case. I crossed it out and wrote mine. Maya's breath hitched. No, we can swap you out. We can delay, we can. We continue," I said. Participant changed to me. I signed before my hands could start shaking. 7 days. I looked down the hallway once more, toward the suite where my husband was celebrating his wedding night early. Daniel Hayes. I thought, so cold it almost felt peaceful. You'll search heaven and hell. You will never find me. Maya tried one last time, her voice breaking. Are you sure? I stared at the door like it was a grave. I decided, I said, a long time ago. I walked back downstairs with my veil still pinned in place, and my smile reattached like it was part of the dress. I stood beside Daniel at the altar. I let him take my hand. I let him whisper, I love you, into my hair while his collar still hid the faint evidence of someone else's mouth. I said my vows like an actress in a role she'd outgrown. When the night ended and we were finally alone, he reached for me with the lazy entitlement of a man who thought he'd won. I stepped back. I'm not feeling well, I said softly. It's that time of month. I'm exhausted. He frowned, just for a second, then smoothed it away and played the perfect husband. Of course, he said, and brought me a warm drink like he was nurturing me. Rest. You've done so much. We lay in bed back to back while his phone buzzed once, twice, 3 times. Each time he turned his face toward the glow, and then flipped it over like he was swatting a fly. I stared at the ceiling and counted down. 6 days. The next morning, I saw the post. It was on Instagram first, one of those soft aesthetic accounts that pretends everything is accidental and candid. The caption was simple, playful, poisonous. Wore a wedding dress to your wedding. Doesn't that mean I married you too? No full shots, no wide angles, just details. My floral wall. The exact blush pink roses I had handpicked. The candle arrangement I argued about with a planner for 2 weeks. The stage design I sketched on a napkin at midnight, because I wanted the lighting to hit just right. It wasn't a spontaneous joke, it was a message. I watched it over and over until my eyes felt dry, until my brain started cataloging each detail like evidence in a case. Daniel came up behind me and slid his arms around my waist like we were in a commercial. What are you thinking about? He murmured. Then he clasped something around my neck, a necklace. It was from a brand I liked, expensive, recognizable. The kind of thing a husband could wave around as proof of devotion. But it wasn't my style. Not my taste. Not what I'd ever shown him. It looked like a last-minute panic purchase, like he'd walked into a boutique and said, give me something she'll accept. Do you like it? He asked. Before I could answer, his phone rang. He didn't even bother hiding his reaction. His smile lifted, small, private, genuine. He dropped the clasp mid-fastening. The necklace clinked onto the dresser like a discarded apology. Something came up at the company, he said quickly. I need to handle it. He didn't even answer the call. He just left. I watched him in the mirror as he grabbed his keys. His reflection looked happy, like he was headed somewhere he wanted to be. Daniel had always known I wouldn't interfere with his work. He trained me into being understanding, into being supportive. He used my patience as a hiding place. 5 minutes later, I grabbed my purse and followed him. He didn't drive toward the office. He drove the opposite direction, toward a mall with a private underground garage. I parked far enough away to watch. He was already there, arms wrapped around Tiffany while she dabbed at her eyes like she was the injured party. Then he pulled a small gift box from his pocket. Same brand. I knew because my eyes were sharp and because I'd once stood at that counter pointing at a specific necklace, sending him photos, telling him, this one. I love this one. He opened the box. It was exactly the necklace I'd wanted. I watched him lift Tiffany's hair and fumble with the clasp behind her neck. She giggled and swatted his hands. You're so clumsy. You can't even put it on. He smiled like an idiot in love. I've never put a necklace on a woman before, he said, and there was pride in his voice. You're the only one. Then she kissed him, quick, triumphant. He muttered something under his breath, half annoyed, half delighted, like she was a temptation he wanted to blame for his choices. They pressed closer, and for a second it looked like they'd forget they were in a public garage. Then Tiffany pulled back, pouting. My movie's about to start, she said. I've waited forever to see it. Daniel leaned in again like he couldn't help himself. She tilted her head, smirking. Does your wife not satisfy you? His face tightened, like her mentioning me was a scratch on his ego. Don't bring her up, he snapped. Tiffany softened her voice immediately, the way women do when they know they're holding the leash. Fine, she purred. Then tell me, who tastes sweeter, me or her? He hesitated, the smallest pause, and Tiffany saw it. Her eyes glistened again, as if she could summon tears on command. I cried all night after the wedding, she whispered. I didn't even dare call you. My eyes swelled up. Daniel's resistance folded like paper. He sighed and brushed her cheek like she was precious. You know I've been with Rachel for 5 years, he said. I had to marry her. Had to. Like I was a contract, a duty, a burden. I don't feel anything for her anymore, he added, softer, indulgent. Last night I didn't touch her. I promised you. The air in my lungs turned bitter. So that was why he'd rolled away and said he was tired. Not because he was exhausted, but because he was keeping promises to someone else. I sat in my car until my hands stopped shaking. Then I went home and started packing, not everything, just enough. A few clothes, my passport, the small things that actually mattered. Everything else, the decor I chose, the photos I framed, the home I built around a man, could rot in place. For days. That evening, a friend request popped up from an account I didn't recognize. No profile picture, no posts, just a message request. I have some photos. Do you want to see? I didn't respond. Another message came through minutes later, about Daniel. I waited 2 hours before accepting, because if I was going to disappear, I needed to act like a woman who still cared. I needed the world to believe my heartbreak. The program's playback video would only work if my final days looked authentic. The photos that arrived weren't explicit in the way movies are explicit. They were worse, intimate, humiliating, undeniable. Daniel's face, Daniel's expression, Daniel's body language that said he was nowhere near duty. The account sent one last line. He says you feel cold. Like you're not even there. I stared at my phone until it blurred. Then I did what a devastated wife would do. I slid down to the floor. I let my breath break. I covered my mouth with my hand and let the sound of grief leak out anyway. The tears came like they'd been waiting years for permission. I cried for 5 years of my life. I cried for the girl I used to be. The one who believed childhood devotion meant a lifetime. And when I finally stopped, my face was swollen and my eyes burned and I felt lighter. Daniel came home the next morning like nothing happened. He kissed my forehead as if he was blessing a pet. I'm sorry I was late, he said cheerfully. Work was insane. I slept at the office. I bought you those soup dumplings you love, but I have to run again. I nodded like a good wife. He looked almost disappointed. Your husband's working so hard, he said, leaning closer. Aren't you going to reward me? He tapped his cheek with one finger, playful. Every part of me wanted to recoil. I swallowed it down and kissed him, brief, polite, the way you'd kiss a relative at a holiday. There, I said softly. Now go. Don't be late. He left smiling, and as the door closed, my phone buzzed again with a message from the burner account. Do you know why he won't take you on a honeymoon? Because he doesn't want me to be sad. Every night you're alone, he comes to me. I didn't respond. I didn't have to, because I was already gone inside. 3 days. I ran into them in public on purpose the next afternoon. A high-end shopping district, a place Daniel liked because it made him feel like he belonged in the world my family had built. Daniel and Tiffany were walking side by side, not touching, careful, controlled, but their distance was intimate, the kind you keep with someone you're used to. Daniel's face went tight when he saw me. Tiffany, on the other hand, lit up. Rachel, she exclaimed, rushing to my side and hooking her arm through mine like we were sisters. Oh my gosh, what a coincidence. Then, like she couldn't help herself, she reached across me and patted Daniel's chest. Daniel, why didn't you say Rachel was here? We could have all eaten together. Daniel looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. Tiffany just needed help finding a job, he said quickly. I hired her at the company. It's nothing, just a placeholder role. Tiffany squeezed my arm tighter, sweet as syrup. Rachel, I'm so grateful, she gushed. My ex got so mad when I left him. Oh, I asked lightly, tilting my head. How mad? Daniel cut in too fast. Rachel, you were looking for me? I smiled at him like I didn't know what he'd done. Tomorrow's your mom's birthday, I said. I'm picking up a gift. Relief softened his eyes. He slipped easily into the role of the grateful husband. I can't believe I forgot, he said, laying it on thick. You're the best wife. If it wasn't for you, my mom would kill me. He insisted we shop together. Guilt made him generous. He bought his mother a gift, he bought me jewelry. He kept playing the devoted husband while Tiffany watched from the side with an expression she couldn't fully hide. So I performed too. I looped my arm through Daniel's. I kissed his cheek. I laughed at his jokes. I made Tiffany watch. When it was time to pay, Tiffany found an excuse and stormed off. Daniel immediately followed. His excuse was flimsy. My stomach. I'll be right back. You pick one more thing. I'll pay when I return. He left so quickly he didn't even notice his hair was damp when he came back. His breath was uneven, his collar sat wrong. He swiped his card and leaned closer. Why'd you pick such a small ring, he teased. Get something bigger. A sales associate beamed at me. Your husband is so generous, she said. I smiled like a woman who was winning. Inside, I felt sick. When Daniel tried to pull me close, I stepped away smoothly. Your mom called me, I said. She wants me there early. You should head back to the office. Anything you say, he said warmly. My wife is the boss. He walked away. Minutes later, my phone buzzed with another message. A photo of Tiffany's neck, marked with proof Daniel had been too close. Under it. Bathroom was thrilling. People outside. He had to keep kissing me so I wouldn't make noise. He said the best part was knowing you were waiting in the parking garage. I shattered my phone against the concrete. Not because I couldn't handle it, because I needed the world to think I couldn't. I crouched behind a pillar, face buried in my hands, breathing like I was falling apart. 2 days. At dinner that night, Daniel played the perfect son. His mother liked me, she always had. She'd been good to me in ways Daniel never deserved. She patted my hand and said, When are you giving me a grandbaby, A big healthy one. That's all I want. Daniel immediately performed devotion. Mom, Rachel's been working so hard. Let her live for herself a little longer. We'll think about it when she's ready. Everyone cooed. My parents smiled sadly, believing the script like they always had. I looked at them and felt a sharp ache. They thought I was finally safe. They didn't know I was counting down to my own funeral. Daniel kept silencing calls under the table. The more he tried to hide it, the more restless he became. His mother finally snapped. Are you having a meeting at the dinner table? Are you that busy? I rescued him with the softness he used to claim he loved. Mom, I said gently. The company's taking on new projects. He's been working nonstop. Don't scold him. Daniel's relief was instant. Exactly, he said, grabbing the excuse like a lifeline. I have to run. Something urgent. He left before anyone could object. I stood too. I'll walk him out, I said. His mother laughed. You two can't stand to be apart for 1 minute, she teased. Daniel drove fast. He didn't notice me following. He stopped at a bridge on the edge of the city where the water below was dark and wide and loud. Tiffany was waiting there. She swung one leg over the barrier as if she was posing for drama. You're 1 minute late, she shouted. I'll jump. Daniel rushed forward, furious and terrified at once. Are you out of your mind? Don't do this. Tiffany started crying again, shoulders shaking. Do you know why I want to disappear? Because you were with her. I'm jealous. I'm jealous until I can't breathe. I've been texting you, he started. You didn't answer fast enough, she sobbed. I thought you didn't want me anymore. Daniel's voice softened. Come down. We'll talk. She saw me then, down the slope, half hidden by shadows, and her mouth curved, triumphant. If you can't marry me, she called, eyes shining, then take me on a honeymoon. Just us, Daniel. Daniel hesitated. Work had always been his excuse with me. His career had always been the reason I should accept loneliness. Tiffany turned that excuse into a weapon. I want it now, she demanded. Tonight. If you don't, you can collect my body. My phone buzzed at the same moment. A text from Daniel, sweet and practiced. Honey, something came up. I have to travel for a few days. Take care of yourself. Eat well. I'll be back soon. I stared at it until I felt nothing. Daniel pulled Tiffany down from the barrier and grabbed her like he wanted to shake the madness out of her. Don't ever do that again, he snapped. Tiffany laughed through her tears. You can't live without me. She kissed him before he could protest. He didn't push her away. He lifted her instead, carried her toward the car like she was the bride and I was the inconvenience. As they walked, Tiffany looked back at me over Daniel's shoulder and flashed a cheerful little peace sign, like she'd won. 4 days had become 3. 3 became 2. Now it was 1. I went home, burned every photo I had of Daniel, and left the house we called ours like I was walking out of a life that had already ended. And still, the burner account kept sending messages, long smug paragraphs full of details meant to poison me. He wants me to have his baby. He says you're boring. He says it's different with me. I read them and put my phone away like they were weather reports. Then I went to Daniel's office. The receptionist's face went pale when she saw me. Mrs. Hayes. Daniel is out. I know, I said calmly. I'm just picking up a document for him. No one stopped me. I walked through the executive hall like I belonged there, because I did. Daniel's office looked normal at first. Our framed photo on his desk, the polished wood, the perfectly curated image of a loyal husband. Then I noticed something new. A second desk position close to his. Too close. That desk, I said, pointing. The young assistant stammered. That's the new executive assistant station. And her name? She swallowed. Tiffany Miller. I nodded. Good. Don't disturb Daniel, he's under pressure. The girl fled like she'd been spared. When the hallway emptied, I pressed my thumb to the biometric lock and opened the private rest area Daniel had built behind his office. The room hit me like a slap. The sheets were rumpled. The air smelled like perfume I'd never worn. The bedding, pink, lacy, the exact style Daniel used to mock when I suggested anything soft. He'd insisted our home had to look minimal, mature, high-end. In here, he'd created a different world. The closet was full of lingerie and satin robes. The shower shelf was crowded with feminine products and a sweet strawberry body wash. On the nightstand was a photo of Daniel and Tiffany smiling together, close enough to make the lie laughable. And beside it, a notebook. A diary. I flipped it open and saw pages filled with giddy handwriting. Every date, every rendezvous, every stolen moment described like a romance, including the moments I was never supposed to know about. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I destroyed the room. Not because I thought it would fix anything, because I needed to feel something other than numb. When I walked back out, the employees watched me with that awkward, pitying silence people save for disasters they don't want to be involved in. I went to the women's restroom because it was where secrets always lived. 2 women were whispering near the sinks. I feel bad for Mrs. Hayes, one murmured. Tiffany's basically wearing the crown already. Don't feel too bad, another replied. She's rich, she'll be fine. Tiffany's the one who's shameless. She acts like she's the boss. She got a cleaning lady fired because her cup got bumped. And in meetings, the first said she'll text Daniel something like, "Honey, seafood tonight?" Right when his screen is mirrored, like she wants everyone to see. I stood in the stall and closed my eyes. Then I took out my phone and called the program director. If I'm going to disappear, I said evenly, I want it to be complete. There was a pause. Meaning? I need one more piece, I said. Something that makes the story irreversible. 2 days. The next morning, Daniel showed up at the small apartment I used to live in before marriage. My old place. The one he knew about. He looked frantic. For the first time, his confidence cracked. Rachel, he said, pushing inside like he still had rights. What is this? You moved out and you didn't answer my calls. You know our rule. No matter what happens, we answer. I thought something happened to you. He held up a bag. I bought you chocolates in Japan. The ones girls love. Who told you? I asked softly. He blinked, caught. The clerk, he said quickly. Look, why are you doing this? Are you angry about? Something silly. Silly. I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo someone had taken. Daniel and Tiffany eating ice cream together like they were on a date. His arm too close, his smile too real. His face changed instantly. Rachel, listen. He scrambled for a lie. She's my assistant, he blurted. She worked on the project. That photo is just an angle. We were standing close by accident. By accident, I repeated. Then I pulled up Tiffany's post. The wedding post. The caption. The details. Daniel's jaw tightened. You left because of this? He demanded, turning it around like I was irrational. You don't trust me? After everything. I stared at him and felt something almost like amusement. I slapped him. Not hard enough to injure. Hard enough to wake the truth. You ever think a wedding with 3 people is too crowded? I asked quietly. If you loved her so much, why didn't you marry her? Daniel's eyes flashed with anger and panic. Rachel, I admit it. Years ago in college, Tiffany and I, he forced out a tiny truth, as if it would distract me from the larger one. It was 1 month. It meant nothing. Now she's just a colleague. You're being dramatic. I walked to the door and opened it. Daniel, I said calmly, look at your office. His face drained as if his mind had already pictured it. We're done, I said. We're divorcing. He lunged forward. No, Rachel, no. His voice cracked. He begged, he promised, he swore he'd fire her, he swore he'd change. I shut the door in his face and left him outside long enough for his pride to finally drag him away. An hour later, the knock came again. This time it was Tiffany. I know you're in there, she called, sing-song sweet. Let's talk. I opened the door because I needed the next scene for the story I was building. Tiffany stood there perfectly composed. She looked almost pleased. I sent Daniel to get me dinner, she said casually. Did you think him coming here meant he regretted it? He didn't. You kicked him out, so he went right back to me. Honestly, I should thank you. You're here to gloat, I said. She smiled. No, I'm here as a woman, she said, as if that made cruelty noble. I'm here to tell you to stop. Then she pulled something from her purse and held it up, a diamond ring. Not a cheap one, the kind of ring a man buys once in his life, if he buys it at all. He ordered it for me, she said softly. Today. He engraved my name inside. He says I'm the one he wants. I stared at it without flinching. Tiffany's smile twitched. He doesn't want your child, she added quickly, desperate to find the knife that would cut deepest. That's why he always protected himself with you. But with me. She patted her stomach, eyes shining with malice. We've been together for months. Want to guess if I'm pregnant? Get out, I said flatly. She stepped closer. You don't deserve the Mrs. Hayes name, she hissed. You're just squatting in my life. She shoved me, and I let myself fall, hard, because the program needed proof. She struck at me in a frenzy, like she'd been waiting years to take her jealousy out on my body. I fought back just enough to make it believable, just enough to leave marks and pull strands of her hair loose, so she couldn't claim innocence. Then she left, breathing hard, victorious. When the door clicked shut behind her, I looked down and saw the red spreading where it wasn't supposed to be. It looked real. That was the point. I called an ambulance myself. I told them where to take me, a partner hospital my family had already arranged. And by the end of the night, I had a document in my file that would haunt Daniel forever, a miscarriage report. I didn't call Daniel. I didn't need to. The next day he showed up anyway. He was in a crisp suit, hair messy like he'd been running his hands through it all night. He looked exhausted. The kind of exhaustion that comes from being pulled between 2 lies. Rachel, he said, reaching for my arm. Where were you? Don't do this. Come home. I pulled away. Divorce, I reminded him. Are you hard of hearing? He swallowed. I'll fire Tiffany, he said quickly. I'll make her disappear from the company. She seduced me, okay? I was drunk, I was stupid, but I don't love her. I love you. He started dialing HR right in front of me like it was a performance. I watched him with a calm that made him look insane. And then what? I asked. You'll keep her somewhere else? Like a secret apartment? A secret life? Daniel's eyes looked wild. What do I have to do to make you believe me? He begged. Move back in. Watch me. I'll do anything. I shook my head once. There's only one answer, I said. Divorce. That night, he called from a different number. His voice was soft, intimate, full of memory. Tonight is our 6-year anniversary, he said. Are you really going to leave me alone? I almost laughed at the audacity. Daniel, I said quietly. If you don't love me, why won't you let me go? I'm not clinging to you. I'm begging for freedom. His voice rose, frantic. No. I love you. I love you. I would rather die than lose you. I hung up. Seconds later, another call came through. Tiffany's voice bright with excitement. Did you put cameras in your house? She asked. Do you want to see something interesting? My stomach didn't drop. It stayed still, heavy, resigned. I opened the security feed because the story demanded it. In the living room of the house I decorated, Tiffany walked in wearing Daniel's shirt like she belonged there. She climbed onto his lap, swaying, playing for the camera. I'm jealous, she whined. You keep telling her you love her. Why don't you say you love me? Daniel pushed her off, hard enough that she landed on the rug, shocked. You're crossing a line, he snapped. You don't get to question what happens between my wife and me. For a second, I saw something like annoyance in him, like she was a problem he didn't want to manage tonight. Then Tiffany changed tactics immediately. She got up, sweet again. I made you dinner, she said lightly. Do you want to eat? Daniel followed her into the dining room. The table was empty. He frowned. What dinner? Tiffany sat on the table itself, crossing her legs slowly, unbuttoning his shirt with deliberate ease. I'm dinner, she purred. Are you hungry or not? The camera caught Daniel's hesitation. One beat, two. Then he stepped forward like he'd been starving. I turned the screen off. Not because I couldn't stand it, because I had one day left. The next morning, my last day in this world, Tiffany showed up again, this time in public. A cafe midday. People around. A stage with witnesses. She sat across from me with her eyes glossy and her voice trembling. The perfect performance. Daniel said, because of the distance between you. She sniffed. I feel terrible. So, I asked. She blinked, thrown off by my lack of reaction. I just want you to know Daniel and I are only like brother and sister. I smiled. Really? I said softly. Do brothers and sisters write diaries like yours? Tiffany's face tightened. He fired me, she said quickly. I'll never interfere again. That has nothing to do with me, I replied. Suddenly she stood up and grabbed my hand, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Rachel, she cried. What do you want from me? I'll kneel if I have to. And she started to drop. I didn't stop her. If she wanted to perform humiliation, she could do it properly. But before her knees even hit the floor, Daniel appeared right on cue. Rachel, he snapped. I did what you asked. I fired her. How far are you going to push this? Tiffany sobbed dramatically. Daniel, don't blame her. I was the one without boundaries. If kneeling helps her forgive us, I'll do it. I'll do anything if she'll come home. Daniel's hand stayed on Tiffany's shoulder, steady, protective, while he looked at me like I was the villain. People stared. Whispers started. I smiled because the absurdity deserved it. Come home. I repeated. To share your strawberry-scented body wash? Daniel's face changed. He let go of Tiffany abruptly like she burned him. Rachel, listen. If you come back, I'll do anything. Anything. I took a step back. Go comfort your sweetheart, I said calmly. You make me sick. Tiffany leaned into him, crying harder, and Daniel hesitated, torn between chasing me and holding her up. He chose her. Of course he did. Not long after I walked away, the burner account called. Tiffany's voice was bright, pleased, intimate, like she was whispering into my ear from inside my own life. He's in the shower, she said, using the strawberry body wash. I kept walking. If I were you, she continued, almost cheerful, I'd just disappear. Find a bridge and end it. At least then you'd stop being pathetic. I hung up. My hands didn't shake, because I wasn't doing this for her. I was doing it for me. At the program office, Maya looked at my face and seemed to understand instantly. Rachel, she whispered, voice cracking. We can still. I shook my head once. I met the director's eyes and said the line like it was a decision, not a plea. Let the story say I went somewhere quiet, I told him. Let it say I walked away from everything. Then softer, because even in a manufactured ending I wanted honesty. Let me disappear. That night, my death became trending news. The official story was simple and devastating. Rachel Hayes, heiress and CEO, was reported missing near the river just after midnight. Her car was found. Her last movements were caught on distant cameras. Search teams worked through the night. By morning, the headlines had decided what grief wanted most: certainty. She's gone. My parents collapsed when they confirmed it. Even knowing the truth, their bodies didn't understand the difference between real loss and a loss that wore my face. Daniel arrived late, stumbling, frantic, like he'd run from Tiffany's arms to mine too late. When they showed him what they'd found, he broke. He clutched what he believed was me and cried like the man in love he pretended to be, shaking so hard his knees gave out. Tiffany stood behind him, pale and rigid. For the first time, she looked scared, because she hadn't believed I would actually vanish. Then the Phoenix program representatives arrived. Men in crisp suits, professional voices, the kind of calm that makes grief look messy and shameful. One of them approached Daniel gently. Mr. Hayes, he said, Rachel Hayes purchased our Cloud Legacy playback service. Daniel's head snapped up, eyes bloodshot. Playback. She left a final recorded sequence, the man said. She requested it be shared publicly after her death. Daniel clung to the possibility like it was oxygen. Show me. We can, the representative said, polite and clinical. With the processing fee. Even in tragedy, money still opened doors. Daniel paid. And while the world watched his breakdown, I sat in a small apartment in Austin, Texas, under a new name, Sienna. On the table in front of me was a new identity, documents, records, a life built like a stage set. Childhood photos, school transcripts, a history detailed enough to withstand scrutiny. I'd been raised in Austin. No parents, no siblings, a life that fit the emptiness I needed. I looked up at the live stream feed on my laptop as Daniel led everyone back to the Hayes family home, my parents, his parents, Tiffany, so they could watch Rachel Hayes' last days. The video began. And it didn't show anything supernatural. It didn't show secrets. It showed reality, stitched together in a way that made it impossible to deny. Me leaving the suite. My face in the hallway. Daniel's texts. Tiffany's posts. The intimacy Daniel tried to hide. Tiffany's taunting messages. The day I walked into Daniel's office and found the rest area that wasn't made for me. Every lie, every betrayal, every moment Daniel had painted me as dramatic for noticing. Daniel watched for less than 5 minutes before he exploded. He turned, grabbed Tiffany, and shoved her so hard she fell onto the floor. You were told not to touch her, he roared, voice cracking. Do you know who you are? Do you know what you are? Tiffany scrambled back, sobbing. I loved you, she cried. I didn't think she would. I just wanted her to leave you. My father, who had once treated Daniel like a son, stepped forward and punched him. The sound was dull, heavy. You animal, my father said, shaking. She never told us one bad thing about you. Not once. And you drove her into the ground. My mother's sob broke open. You promised, she choked out. You promised you'd take care of her for life. The playback kept going, merciless. The bridge. The business trip text. The security camera footage. Tiffany's final phone call. And then the hospital scene. The miscarriage report slid onto the table like a verdict. The program representative's voice stayed calm as he spoke to the room. We deal in proof, he said. Medical records can be verified. The video showed me in a hospital bed, eyes empty, voice barely there as a doctor asked if I wanted to notify the baby's father. And my recorded answer, soft and lifeless, filled the room. No, there's no baby anymore. And there's no father. Daniel collapsed to his knees. Tiffany shrank into a corner. Then the audio from her last call played, louder than anyone expected, clear enough to make her cruelty echo off the walls. If I were you, I'd just disappear. Find a bridge and end it. Tiffany screamed, trying to cover her mouth, but it was too late. Her voice had already branded itself into everyone's memory. Daniel snapped. He didn't hear her begging, he didn't hear her saying she was sorry. He only heard the word that mattered. My baby. He lashed out like a man possessed, breaking glass, shouting threats, shaking with a grief he didn't earn. And when Tiffany tried to claim she was pregnant, he stared at her with something terrifying in his eyes. You don't get to say that, he said, voice hollow. You don't get to carry anything that belongs to her. That was when Tiffany finally understood she'd never been loved, she'd been used. By morning, the police were involved. The evidence was too public, too damning. Tiffany's messages weren't drama anymore. They were documented harassment, coercion, psychological abuse that pushed a woman toward the edge. And because Daniel couldn't stop himself from being violent when his mask slipped, his sentence grew heavier than she expected. The girl who once smiled in my bridal party became a headline for all the wrong reasons. I didn't celebrate. I just watched the screen and felt tired. My parents severed every partnership Daniel's company had ever benefited from. Contracts were canceled, relationships were cut. Projects that had been handed to him through family connections were reclaimed. My father didn't have to shout to make it lethal. His voice was quiet when he said it. From now on, he survives on his own merits. Daniel didn't have many. For months after my death, he unraveled publicly. His company faltered, his focus cracked. The man who used to charm rooms started looking hollow in interviews, haunted in every photo. 6 months passed. My parents moved parts of their business to Austin for a fresh start because they couldn't breathe in the city where they'd buried a daughter. And that's how they met Sienna, a quiet woman with no family, no history worth investigating, and a face that made them flinch the first time they saw it because grief always recognizes what it lost. They didn't ask too many questions. They didn't want to. They simply gathered me into their orbit like they were rescuing themselves. They called me their goddaughter. They told people I reminded them of someone they loved. And slowly, they started smiling again. Not because the pain vanished, but because love found a new place to land. I built a routine. I found a simple job. I lived in a small apartment that matched my new life, quiet, contained mine. One Friday after work, my coworker Mia grabbed my arm and grinned. You're too boring, she announced. Tonight I'm taking you out. On my salary? I laughed. I spend half of it on coffee. I can't afford out. You can afford this, she said, dragging me along. It's a new barbecue place. When we arrived, I realized the restaurant had a gimmick. The servers were college guys wearing aprons and not much else, cooking at your table. Mia practica li clapd. See. Culture, she said proudly. Our server looked painfully shy, cheeks red. eyes refusing to meet mine for too long. Mia leaned in, shameless. Don't be nervous, she teased. We're here for the brisket. I tried to elbow her. Stop. I hissed, laughing. He's just working. Mia only got worse. She lightly squeezed his arm and looked at me like she was presenting a prize. Sienna, she said loudly, look at this. Do you like it? I caught her hand gently. Mia, be normal. The guy finally spoke, voice firm despite the blush. Ma'am, he said to Mia. Can you act like an adult? Mia burst into laughter. Oh my God, she groaned, turning to me with mock embarrassment. Fine. He's my little brother, Noah. Noah shot her a look that said he would never forgive her. Mia leaned in and lowered her voice, gleeful. He saw your picture and asked about you, she whispered. He's been obsessed. Your brother is in college, I hissed back. I'm older. You're insane. He's grown, Mia shrugged. And he likes what he likes. Noah stood beside the grill, eyes steady on me. I don't need you to say yes, he said quietly. I just want a chance to try. I told him no. I told him again the next week, and the next. He didn't argue. He just showed up, brought me home when it rained, walked me to my car when it was dark, remembered what I liked without making it feel like a transaction. It was unfamiliar. It was unsettling. It was kind. And then, because the universe loves to test boundaries, I saw Daniel again. It was New Year's week, 6 months after Rachel Hayes died. Daniel had been trying to get gifts into my parents' home for weeks. Expensive baskets, flowers, letters. My mother refused everything. One afternoon, I was in the garden watering plants when I sensed movement behind me. A man stumbled through the gate like he'd been running on desperation for months. Daniel. He looked thinner, older. His eyes were sunken. His suit hung on him like it belonged to someone else. He saw me and stopped so suddenly I thought he might collapse. Rachel. He breathed. Then he rushed forward and grabbed me in a hug so tight it felt like panic. You're alive. You are. I shoved him away and slapped him so hard his head turned. His hand flew to his cheek, stunned. I stared at him with disgust. Who are you? I snapped. Get your hands off me. He blinked like he couldn't understand English. My mother stormed outside at the sound. The second she saw Daniel, her face twisted with fury and pain. Get out, she cried. Get out of my house. You destroyed my daughter and you still won't leave us alone. Daniel looked between us, frantic. You only had one daughter, he whispered, voice breaking. You only had Rachel. My mother's sob turned sharp. Don't you dare say her name. I stepped between them and spoke slowly, deliberately, like I was explaining something to a child. I look like her, I said. That's why they took me in. I'm their goddaughter. Daniel stared at me harder, searching for cracks. The resemblance was close enough to torment him, but it wasn't exact. I wasn't as tall, my voice didn't match, my mannerisms were sharper, less polished because Sienna didn't have to behave like a perfect heiress. He knew. He just didn't want to accept it. After that day, I started having Noah pick me up from work. Not because I was helpless, but because I didn't want Daniel's shadow near me. One night, Daniel cornered me on the sidewalk outside my building. Just one drink, he said, voice hoarse. Just talk to me. I looked at him and felt something cold bloom in my chest. I don't talk to killers, I said. Daniel flinched. I didn't. Because of you, I continued louder. My parents cried every day for half a year. His eyes filled with tears. I just want to know about her, he whispered. Anything. How she was at the end. What she said. What she. I didn't know her. I lied smoothly. Everything I know is from my parents after she died. I leaned closer, voice low and vicious. If you loved her, why didn't you die too? Daniel let out something like a laugh that wasn't humor. I should, he said hollow. But I wanted to take care of her parents. That's all I have left. I scoffed. They had me. You're nothing. Daniel grabbed my arm as I turned away, desperation turning him reckless. I yanked back. Touch me again and I call the police. I snapped. Then Noah appeared out of nowhere, like he'd been watching from the shadows, exactly as he later admitted. He swung once. His fist connected with Daniel's jaw. Daniel crumpled to the pavement like his body had finally given up. Noah stood over him, breathing hard. Don't touch her, he said coldly. You don't get to put your hands on her. Daniel looked up, dazed. Who are you? Noah didn't flinch. Her boyfriend, he said, loud enough to make it true in the moment. And you're not doing this again. He looked at me then, eyes fierce and gentle at the same time. If it were your sister, he asked quietly, would you want me to hit him? I stared down at Daniel, the man I once loved, now reduced to a desperate stranger. And something inside me finally unclenched. Yes, I said simply. Hit him. Noah didn't need permission twice. Daniel didn't fight back. He just lay there like a man who believed pain was the only thing he deserved. I crouched down near him and spoke softly so only he could hear. Do you like this face? I asked. You wanted to see her again, didn't you? His eyes squeezed shut. She's gone, I whispered. You don't get to bring her back by haunting people who look like her. I stood and took Noah's hand. As we walked away, Noah stayed silent for a long time. Then, when we reached my building, he pulled me into his arms like he was afraid I'd evaporate. I heard what happened, he murmured. From Mia about your sister. The word sister almost broke me. I nodded, keeping my gaze on the dark street. She reached a breaking point. I said carefully. She loved him, he betrayed her, and the other woman made sure she never had peace. Noah's arms tightened. Then let me give you peace, he said simply. I wanted to refuse. I should have. Sienna was supposed to stay alone, safe, unattached, quiet. But Noah wasn't asking for vows, he wasn't demanding forever, he wasn't trying to own me. He was just offering a chance. I'm not good at this, I admitted, voice small. I grew up without family. I'm missing pieces people expect you to have. Noah nodded like he'd already accepted every flaw I tried to hand him. Then I'll be patient, he said. Give me 6 months. If you still don't want me, I'll walk away. And the terrifying part was, I believed him. A year after Rachel Hayes died, I finally said yes. Not to marriage, not to promises I couldn't guarantee, just yes to trying. Noah stopped calling me ma'am, or letting Mia call me sis. He started showing up at my door with that boyish grin and saying, Sienna, where are we going on our date? It was ridiculous. It was sweet. It was the first time in years I felt loved without needing to earn it. 3 months into dating, my mother called me into the kitchen. Her eyes were tired, her voice was steady. Daniel Hayes is dead, she said. I didn't ask how. I didn't ask why. I didn't ask if he regretted it. I didn't ask if he said my name. I just nodded once because it didn't matter. My mother watched my face carefully, like she was looking for a crack in the new life we'd built. He asked to be buried beside Rachel, she said quietly. We refused. I know, I said and meant it. Because his ending, whatever it was, had stopped belonging to me the day I signed my name on that contract. Daniel could die for love. He could die for guilt. He could die for obsession. None of it would change what he did while I was alive. I walked out onto the balcony that night and listened to the city sounds below. Cars, laughter, music drifting from somewhere far away. Noah came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. You okay? He asked softly. I leaned back against him and stared at the dark sky. I'm fine, I said truthfully. I'm not her anymore. And for the first time, the words didn't feel like grief. They felt like freedom.